Being a virtuous woman has never been easy, but today it seems almost impossible. But the true virtuous woman is not the one who never gets tired, but the one who keeps going even when she is tired. You wake up early, get your child up, call your husband, prepare breakfast, and rush into another day of work. When you return, the house is waiting for you like a silent second shift. You stay strong, do what needs to be done, give your best. But there are days when everything inside you is just begging for one thing: peace. 1 minute without demands, without voices, without expectations. Just silence to breathe. On the outside, it looks like routine. On the inside, it is often silent exhaustion. There are days when you do not want luxury, you do not want praise, you do not want anything extraordinary. You just want 1 minute of peace. A moment without demands, without requests, without having to be everything for everyone. And then the guilt shows up. You start wondering if you are failing God, your family, what the Bible says about a virtuous woman. Maybe you think, if I tried harder, I could become that woman. But the more you try, the further away it seems. What if I told you that maybe the problem is not you, but the way you were taught to see this virtue? A virtuous woman is not born ready, does not live without exhaustion, does not smile all the time while carrying the world on her shoulders. She is shaped in difficult days, in hidden tears, and in battles that no one sees. And maybe you have already been becoming this woman for a long time, without ever realizing it. The story of Rebekah will reveal something that can change the way you see yourself forever. Maybe you have been trying to become a virtuous woman, without realizing that God has already seen signs of her in you for a long time, when pressure begins to change you. In Genesis 24:15-20, the Bible brings Rebekah into a simple yet decisive moment. She arrives at the well with her jar, and without hesitation offers water to Abraham's servant. What stands out is not only the gesture, but the intensity of it. She also offers to draw water for the camels, something extremely tiring and repetitive. There was no promise, no audience, just a spontaneous act of generosity. This detail shows that in the beginning there was lightness, willingness, and a heart aligned with what was right, even without any guarantee of return. You started like that too, with the right heart, with a sincere desire to do what is right, to be gentle, to be good. And for a time it felt natural, but without noticing, something began to weigh on you. Situations became more difficult, people more demanding, and that lightness slowly gave way to a silent exhaustion. You still do what needs to be done, but it is no longer the same. It is as if, little by little, you have grown used to an environment that wears you down, that pressures you, that shapes you, and you do not even remember when you began to change. And deep down, almost like a whisper, that question comes: when did you stop being who you were in the beginning? When conflict begins to change you. In Genesis 25:28, the biblical passage shows a detail that seems small, but carries deep weight. Within the same household, Isaac loved Esau, while Rebekah leaned toward Jacob. It was not just a difference in preference. It was a divided environment, silently filled with tension. Two sons, two sides, two directions within the same home. Rebekah, who once acted with lightness and willingness, is now placed in a setting where feelings begin to compete, where decisions are no longer simple. And it is in this kind of environment that something internal begins to shift, almost imperceptibly, and you feel this in your own life. Living with difficult people, dealing with a heavy atmosphere, with indirect remarks, with preferences that hurt. All of this changes you from the inside. At first, you try to remain calm, you try to do what is right, but there comes a point when you are no longer responding by choice. You are reacting. It is like living in a house where the noise never stops. At first it bothers you, then you get used to it. But the wear and tear continues, even when you no longer notice it. And then something begins to trouble you inside. Are you still choosing who you want to be, or are you just surviving the environment? When you try to accelerate what was promised. In Genesis 27:5-17, a decisive moment is revealed. Rebekah hears Isaac's plan to bless Esau and, driven by urgency, decides to act. She instructs Jacob, prepares the food, arranges every detail to secure the outcome. It is not an empty impulse. It is an attempt to ensure something that in some way she believed was already destined. But in that moment, she stops trusting the timing and begins to control the process. The same woman who began with lightness is now driven by pressure, anticipating what had not yet arrived, and you understand this place more than you would like. When something important seems to slip through your hands, your heart races, your mind will not stop, and the urge to fix it takes over. You try to adjust, anticipate, find a way, as if you cannot wait. It is like trying to open a door before its time and, by forcing it, ending up breaking the lock. Afterward, even entering becomes difficult. It was not malice, it was fear. Fear of losing, of it not happening, of things not working out. And without realizing it, you begin to act outside of who you once were. And in the silence, a question rises that is hard to ignore. Are you still trusting? Or are you already trying to control everything on your own? When consequences arrive in silence, in Genesis 27:41-45, the passage reveals what happens after the decision. Esau, wounded, begins to desire revenge, and Jacob must flee to preserve his own life. Rebekah, who once tried to protect, now has to let go of her son's presence. The text does not describe a reunion, does not show closure, only separation. It is a heavy silence, the kind that lingers. What once seemed necessary in the moment now reveals a cost that cannot be reversed. And everything happens quietly, without announcement, simply as a consequence of what was done under pressure. And you know how this hurts in a way no one sees. There are decisions that in the moment seem small, justifiable, even necessary, but time begins to reveal what they were carrying. Relationships begin to drift apart. Conversations stop happening. An emptiness slowly grows inside you. It is like a crack that starts small, almost imperceptible, but over time begins to open, to spread, until it can no longer be ignored. And the hardest part is not the mistake itself, it is the silence that comes after. It is when you realize that the price of haste did not come right away, but is being paid now, little by little inside you. And then a question settles deep within. Is it still possible to repair? Or have some things already gone too far? When silence hides who you have become. After Genesis 27, something stands out. Rebekah practically disappears from the narrative. There is no detailed continuation, no ending that explains how her story concluded. That woman who began with action, presence, and decision is simply no longer mentioned. The text does not offer a comfortable closure, does not show recorded redemption, nor visible reconciliation. It is as if after everything only silence remains. And this silence is not empty. It carries the weight of everything that came before, of choices made under pressure. And this touches a deep place within you. Because maybe you also did the best you could with what you had at the time. But at some point, you began to lose yourself along the way. It was not all at once. It was not something clear. It happened little by little in the middle of difficult decisions, pressure, and conflict. It is like looking at yourself in the mirror after some time and feeling that something has changed, but not knowing exactly when it happened. And the hardest part is realizing that not every story keeps the same essence from the beginning. So a quiet question remains, almost without an answer. Do you still recognize who you have become? Or have you just kept living without noticing what was left behind? What it really means to be virtuous today. Throughout the entire journey in Genesis 24:27, Rebekah's story does not show perfection, but reveals something deeper, consistency under pressure. And also the moments when that consistency failed. She began with lightness, faced conflict, made difficult decisions, and at times tried to control what was not in her hands. The narrative does not idealize, it exposes, and that is exactly what reveals the true meaning. Being virtuous was never about never making mistakes, but about who you choose to be when everything inside you wants to react, and this meets you exactly where it hurts. Because there are days when you want to respond, want to defend yourself, want to fix everything all at once. But deep down, you know that every impulsive reaction carries a cost later. Being virtuous today is not about always getting it right. It is about, even when you are tired, not allowing a harsh environment to turn you into someone you do not recognize. It is like holding a door that keeps slamming in the wind. It requires strength, it requires patience, it requires decision. And in the middle of all this, a silent choice is born that only you can make. Will you react to what is being done to you? Or will you decide, even under pressure, who you continue to be? Do you realize that Rebekah's story was not about a perfect woman? It was about a chosen woman who had to deal with everything you also face. Pressure, conflict, difficult decisions, fear of losing. None of that disqualified her at the beginning. On the contrary, it was in the simple, in that moment at the well, that she made herself available. And that is what changes everything. God did not start with her perfection, He started with her willingness. And maybe that is what you needed to understand today. The first lesson is clear, even if it is hard to admit. You do not have to fix everything right now. The urgency to adjust, to fix, to guarantee results only places you in a position of exhaustion. Waiting is not weakness, it is maturity. In your daily life, inside your home, when everything pressures you to react, or at work, when it feels like you constantly have to prove something, not every urgency requires an immediate response. Some things require calm, require time, require trust. The second lesson is even deeper. You cannot allow the environment to decide who you become. Because without realizing it, that is exactly what happens. A comment here, a situation there, a disappointment. And before you know it, you are different. Harder, more tired, more reactive. But being virtuous today is exactly about resisting that. It is, even in the middle of chaos, choosing not to lose yourself. Within your family, when no one makes it easy. In your relationships, when you feel alone. This choice is silent, but it defines everything. And the third lesson is the most delicate. Trying to control what has not yet arrived can cost far too much. Rebekah did not make a mistake out of malice. She made a mistake out of fear, out of anxiety, out of trying to secure something she believed she could not afford to lose. And this is more common than it seems. How many times have you tried to rush something, force a situation, make it work, and later realized that the cost came? There is wisdom in knowing when to stop, in not acting on impulse, in trusting even when everything inside you wants to fix it. Now the question is no longer about Rebekah, it is about you. Inside your home, in your work, in your decisions, what will you do with what you understood today? Will you keep reacting to what surrounds you? Or will you begin to consciously choose who you want to be from this point forward? If this spoke to you, do not ignore it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you will not leave the same way you came in. Here you learn how to stand firm, even when everything around you tries to change you.